Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world today. This is Toby Usnik, and you're joining me on The Caring Economy. Today, I'm honored to have my friend of nearly 3 decades and collaborated on many things philanthropic, Andrew Zobler. Andrew is the founder and CEO of the Sydell Group. He has championed, led, or co-led, or founded amazing properties around the world. We're going to talk about many of them today, and really stay at that high level of what is that nexus of building brands and giving and community engagement. So welcome to The Caring Economy, Andrew Zobler.
Thank you, Toby. It's a pleasure to be here. Now that you've dated me, hopefully I can live up to that long history of friendship and association.
I mean, I've always marveled at Andrew's success professionally, and also his and the people around him, their engagement with community. We, for our listeners, should note that we first became friends sharing a summer house off the coast of Long Island back in the early 90s, and have been friends and colleagues since. Andrew, tell us a little bit about your magnificent career journey. A hometown kid does well. You grew up on Long Island, and tell us how you got where you got today.
Oh, first of all, I'm going to date us even further because I think we met in the summer of '88. So
Wow.
it was not even the '90s. So we're lucky to still be here and still be in the prime of our career. And I'm actually thinking that the next chapter in my life, may actually be the most interesting.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of how I got here, it may not be the most interesting story because it really was to a large extent by accident. When I was a kid, I was always very interested in real estate, and I sort of drew maps and of little make-believe cities and things like that, and always kind of wanted to build and create things. And when I went to go to school, I was not really very good with math. I ultimately got better at it when you put dollar signs in front of it, but then it sort of made a little more sense. But I was always really good at reading comprehension, so I went to law school and entered the business world in that way. And I was a real estate specialist, and ultimately narrowed my specialty to hotels, and grew a sort of a real love for hotels because they were real estate, and they were also a business, and they were also creative, and there were places you could bring your friends and entertain them, and you could communicate with the world. And so for me, it was really just a passion. I started my career in hotels really on the business side, putting business deals together, which was a natural dovetail off of my legal career. And then at one point in time, had the opportunity to basically oversee the creative and the brand, as well as the business side of it. And that was really with the NoMad in New York, and luckily, the project was really very well received. And after that, once you had sort of done it once, it became easier, to raise money and to be able to do it again. And it was sort of a joining together of kind of the love I have of collecting things and of art and things that patina with business. So I really have to say that it's been, a pleasure, and I would do what I do, if don't we want to publicize this, but I probably do what I would do even if people didn't pay me to do it.
Well, let's be fair here, though. You're being a modest person, I think. These were not like little local yokel law firms or business people you were working with, right? You were at a major New York law firm, right?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I started at Cravath, which was arguably the best corporate law firm in the world. And I worked at Paul Weiss, and I became a partner at Greenberg Traurig in New York. And at Greenberg Traurig, I met Barry Sternlicht pretty early in his career, before he had bought ITT Sheraton and created W and all of that. And I was going to join Barry as his general counsel of what was going to be the combined Westin Starwood entity. And then on the heels of that, you may recall the history, about 15 years ago, they bought ITT Sheraton in 6 days, I think it was. And all of a sudden it became a $20 billion company. And I was in my early 30s, and they said I didn't have enough gray hair to be general counsel. So luckily they put me in this sort of made up job of head of acquisitions North America. And I really just worked on things that interested Barry, and we bought all kinds of, stuff, and worked on the early W's, when they were all owned by Starwood, and before we began to sort of roll it out to the world as a brand. And those were exciting times.
So again, ladies and gentlemen, today we're with Andrew Zobler, the founder and CEO of the Sydell Group. Andrew, can you tell our listeners a bit about your current portfolio of properties? These are names that people will know, but they don't necessarily know that they fall under your portfolio. So give us a little color, if you will.
Sure. Well, I mean, the first thing is, it's really very much been about the properties and not about, making my name well known or the name of our parent company well known. Although a lot of people, like most people in the industry, would know me and would know, Sydell as a brand. Sydell was my grandmother, and she was in the antique business, and I used to go around Europe with her in the summer, and that's when I learned sort of about design and I fell in love with things, the patina, et cetera. And it was later that career, my career sort of came together with that passion, and sort of I entered the hotel space. But in terms of what we've created, we created the NoMad Hotel in New York, which has won all kinds of awards. It was really sort of one of the first hotels where the name of the hotel and the restaurant were the same, and it was kind of one operation, sort of conducted at sort of a very high level, but sort of in what I would call the cool hotel space. And historically, in the past, there really had been a separation between hotels that had a very high level of food and had a very high level of service, and kind of design-driven hotels. And the NoMad was one of the first hotels where that really came together. And then after the NoMad, we went on to do the Freehand, which was something really completely different.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was in Miami. It was kind of small and had sort of a cultish following for its bar called the Broken Shaker. And the Broken Shaker went on in a small sort of 15-seat bar with a big outdoor area to be awarded the best hotel bar in America. It was up against various Four Seasons, et cetera. So that was a little heady. And we went on to do 4 of those, one in New York, one in Chicago, and one in Los Angeles, as well as the original in Miami. And then we also did a hotel called The Line in
DC.
Los Angeles, early days.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it was in Koreatown, which was kind of a hotel perspective, pretty undiscovered. There was at one time that had been a very fashionable strip along Wilshire Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
And it had really become sort of the heart of Koreatown, and people stayed downtown, and they stayed in Hollywood, and they stayed in Beverly Hills, but no one really stayed in Koreatown. The hotel we bought was sort of a really run-down Ramada with 20-year-old beds and 20-year-old TVs in it, and we bought it out of bankruptcy for really nothing, and we recreated it as a hotel that was very much all about its architecture, which was kind of neat 1960s sort of industrial kind of architecture, and we worked with Sean Nibb on it to create something that was completely different than the Freehand, and completely different than the NoMad, and began to sort of show it was sort of very LA, very about that architecture, and very much about Koreatown. We
Mm-hmm.
partnered with Roy Choi at the time. Got right when we opened, we were lucky enough that he had a number 1 bestseller in New York Times on his biography, and his story was really interesting. And he had grown up in LA, and kind of was very much seen as sort of an LA kind of personality. And the idea behind the brand, which was something relatively new, was that the brand was about a way of thinking and not really about a particular
Mm-hmm.
aesthetic. And we went on to do one in DC, one in Austin, Texas, and now we're in the process of building one in San Francisco. And then the NoMad also continued to develop. We ended up doing a NoMad in Los Angeles. We did one in Las Vegas, and we're about to open one in London on Bow Street, right across from the Royal Opera House, and sort of like the first police station in London called the Bow Street Runners, with an old courthouse and an old jail. And
Wow.
which is, it's really maybe the best thing we've ever done. And then sort of somewhere along the way, 2 other things, I guess, our 2 largest projects. One is the Ned in London, which is a great old
Spectacular property.
Lutyens building. We did it in partnership with Ron Burkle and Nick Jones at Soho House, and nothing really like it in London. 9 restaurants and about 65,000 square feet of public area, with a big health club and private membership club, and a swimming pool on the roof
in a
of
landmark
100-year-old
building, no less.
Yeah, grade 1 listed, which means it's, among the top most important historic buildings in London. And then something completely different. We did 3,000 rooms in Las Vegas with MGM. So we partnered with them to do the Park MGM and create sort of a new brand, which was a little more, youthful then, and a little bit more, I would describe it as more residential than what anyone had really ever done in Vegas before. And that had with it a 400-room and NoMad. And then just, so you don't think we were
lazy,
not busy. We did these 2 Saguaro hotels, which were kind of just these sort of motel-like hotels that were, kind of banal. And we just, we hired Stamberg Farrier and kind of were known for their use of color. And we just made them really, really vibrant and all about the color. And and actually, interesting enough, I think that our Palm Springs Saguaro is one of the most Instagram hotels in the world. And it was just something that we picked up for really not very much money at all, and kind of just had some fun with it.
So again, ladies and gentlemen, today on The Caring Economy, we have Andrew Zobler, who's the founder and CEO of the Sydell Group, named after his grandmother, which I think is so cool. Real homage to her. Andrew, you say that a brand is a way of thinking, and I agree with you. I think it really ties into experience. I also think, though, something that all of your brands do that is truly awesome and consistent with the caring economy and my views on all of the way of doing business is it's about community. You don't go in and disrupt and try and make something old necessarily something that it's not. Or you brought in Choi in Koreatown. You worked with local talent. You celebrated the roots, so to speak, of that property. And I know, for example, with the Freehand, at least the one in New York, you brought in as a trustee at Bard's Fisher Center, you brought in commissioned artwork from students at Bard to fill the property, right? So you're really trying to, from what I see, engage with the community and celebrate it, not blow it up and reinvent something new.
Yeah, well, those are two different things you're really focusing in on. One is kind of how to create great product. And I think that the way you do that is you try and really think about where you are and the building that you find yourself in and the community that you find yourself in, and you really engage. And that can be done through art, it can be done through music, it can be done through design, it can be done through food, it can be done through, any host of different things. It can be done through music. But people, I think, are looking for an experience of travel, and I don't want to go someplace where they're in Memphis and they, can't tell the difference between their hotel room in Memphis and their hotel room in Cleveland. Like, you want to give them a sense of place. So that's very important for Sydell. But the other thing, that I think in terms of the caring economy is that although, on a personal level, I'd like to think that I'm very philanthropic, and I do that, just purely of the heart and for causes that are dear to me. And I think in the hotels, what we really try and do is we try to engage with our, communities. And I think of communities at kind of 2 levels. One are the communities, where, we reside, and then also the communities of people that come to stay in our hotels. And I think that, by giving to charities and supporting causes that people care about, it tends to give them sort of a deeper connection to the brand. And that could really go to the heart of how we think about our company and our brands, which is that I think a lot of people in the hotel space, when they create something, they do a lot of tests and they sort of try and create something that they think most people will like and very few people will dislike. And we take a really very different view. And our view is kind of, how do we create something that we think a certain subset of people will be extraordinarily passionate about? We call them sort of brand zealots. And so we know that, for example, when we do the NoMad and we take these sort of, French fabrics and sort of, very idiosyncratic art, and there are people who are going to come into the room and say, I don't really like this, it's really not my style, it's not, it's not modern, and it, et cetera, and then whatever, it's not for me. But we also know that people are going to come in and they're going to go, wow, like I really feel like I'm staying in a friend's home, and this feels so collect it and I just sort of love it here. And so we have, for example, at the NoMad, over 50% of our guests at the NoMad have stayed with us 5 or more times, which is sort of an extraordinary statistic. And as a hotelier, you know, as a business matter, so if you want to just put it in dollars and cents in terms of how people think about it, generally, if you get your reservations off of distribution like Expedia or hotels.com, et cetera, you know, you're going to pay about 20%, give or take, for that reservation. So on $100, you know, ADR or, you know, room rate, you're going to basically pay $20 over to the distribution. But if you can basically get that customer to come back and book directly with you because they have a relationship with you, you're going to keep that $20. And so we very often think of that, you know, $20 as sort of money that we can be spending to enhance those relationships. And that can be through corporate giving. It can be through giving little gifts to our regular customers, sending over a cocktail, you know, remembering somebody's birthday. But giving is definitely a major part of it, you know, so that we have sort of a voice and sort of support sort of a set of ideas, and that is something that's not really just a, you know, a statement, but something that we really like to you know, to back up. And honestly, it's also part of the way we do business. We generally are not very vocal about it. So in some ways, it's a little awkward talking to you, Toby, about our corporate philanthropy, because we don't do it in a way that sort of, you know, put our name up. We're the, you know, grand old sponsors of this and that. We sort of do it in a quiet way, which is sort of how we build our hotels. You know, we do it because we think it's right, and we do it because we think it has resonance with people who are looking. But, you know, for example, like if you compare the way we build a business to sort of someone like, you know, an Ian Traeger or an Andre Balazs, who are sort of competitors in the space and who are both, you know, extremely talented. Take Andre, for example. Andre will who I worked with for a number of years. Andre will basically, you know, to sort of, you know, again, date myself, take out his Rolodex, and he will, you know, invite in, you know, all the, you know, sort of coolest people and sort of have them come to lots of parties. And that's how he creates a, you know, sort of a buzz or a halo around his product. And we never do that. We never really comp anybody. We don't invite. We kind of just try and set out to do something that has like an extremely high level of, you know, service and engagement. And, you know, we Google everyone who comes in, and not just the celebrities. And so we, you know, we try and find out when people's birthdays are, and we try and find out, you know, the things that they really like, and sort of just make it like a really great experience. And then from that, you know, very like in New York, for example, pretty much every celebrity and, you know, and a host of billionaires and presidents and various people have been to the NoMad, but it's not because we necessarily sought them out directly. It's just because we provided an experience, and then through word of mouth and through editorial, you know, sort of they came.
Yep. Well, in my book, or my view, serving is the most noble thing we can do. So I think both practically and metaphorically, you're doing that in hospitality. You're serving to a group of, you have your two levels. You said you have your community in which you operate, and you have the community who come to see you, and you're serving them. And I think that you do it with class, with panache, and with a real authenticity, an overused word. But still, I think you do it that way. And that then engenders a loyalty that you've described, Andrew, but also I think it gets you referrals, right? If you have the great buzzworthy hotel and it's consistent, like the line in Washington when I was there, I couldn't rave about it enough to friends. And now when my friends go to Washington, it's the first place they want to go. It's probably the sexiest, most fun thing that's happened in Washington in terms of hotels in a while. And you've done this great homage to what was a Christian Science reading room, where even the church organ was reworked into a chandelier that sits over this entry hall, and the card catalogs cards are actually turned into artworks in the rooms. It's a experience to be savored, I think, married with incredible service, great restaurants, and in a historic part of Washington, D.C. So I'd like to think that your ability to serve so well to those two levels is also serving you well in the end. And that's how you're building your brand. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I think, you know, it's important I think for people to recognize, that we've been close friends, as you said, for many decades. And I think your own sort of example that you've set of the importance of philanthropy and sort of giving back is something that has resonated with me as a role model. So I wouldn't say that everything I've done has just been sort of my own idea. I think you yourself have been
Thank you.
part of part of helping the way of, the way of thinking. But I think also, I think also that basically giving back makes people feel good. And so, for example, one of the things that we do at all of our hotels is we generally take $1 from every room. And you can opt out of it if you want to, but almost always, people are happy to participate. And we give to local, to local charities, and that creates kind of a connection to communities. And we change it out all the time. We're always looking to see who's doing interesting things, and again, we don't do it really because it's necessarily direct cause and effect. But I do think it's important for people who are really just, crunching numbers to know that there is a direct cause and effect. When you start giving to the community, who supports a lot of charities in the community, it tends to be, affluent business people. Affluent business people see that your, hotel is kind of, not just some out of town, conglomerate, but actually is a participant in the, in the local community of taking care of, people in need. People will respond to that in a very positive way. And then when they think, okay, well, where am I going to have my, gala, or where am I going to have my wedding or my 50th, anniversary or what have you, they tend to come and think of you. And so you create this nexus with the community. So, I think, like, if people just want to give back, that's the best reason. But I think that even, if you're not thinking about giving back and you're just thinking about how do I, maximize the bottom line of my company, I think a lot of brands, especially brands that are really consumer centric, will benefit from having an active, corporate philanthropy, which I know is sort of a central thesis of your career and something that you've been, really a champion of. And, I'm very proud of that, and and really support it and think it's a terrific thing to do. But I do think that one of the challenges, as I always say, as our company gets bigger, I always say, and not that we're so big, but I always say the bigger we get, the smaller we need to think. And I think that that's something that is important. If you take away one thing from this, from this chat, I think if you're a larger company and you're trying to really create, inroads into the communities that you serve, and you're trying to, create a sort of a local connection and not be perceived as just sort of, something that is, just a commercial enterprise from far away. It's the perfect way to do it, by empowering, your local people to sort of have some money available to do that. And by the way, that's how we run it. I mean, there are certain projects where I get personally really involved in it. That's often when they're on the sort of creation side of a hotel. But most of the projects that I describe, are really things that are empowered to the local team. And I don't, I tend to do a quick review of who they're giving to, just to make sure that, the organizations are sort of efficient and set up, and the money is really going somewhere. And it's but I don't really impose my own personal set of values on, who they choose. I let, and it empowers, our team on the ground. And I think that also really helps foster the relationship between the team on the ground and the company, because we're not dictating to them, give to this one or give to that one, but it's something that we allow them as a local community to sort of figure out for themselves, who they want to support. And that helps, again, engender loyalty, not only among the community, but also among staff.
Completely.
We have a very high level of retention among our staff. And it's because we do, we empower them, and, in numerous ways, to sort of, because we don't want our hotels to feel scripted. We want them to feel anything but scripted. And so that, the only way that happens well is when you have sort of dedicated people who, care as much about hospitality as I do and are out there and sort of doing it in their own way. Like you'll never hear, we're like the anti, Ritz-Carlton. You'll never hear, sort of a scripted sort of server at Sydell. It's just not something that
Yeah.
we do. It doesn't make it right or wrong, but that's not our, it's not our culture.
And I'm going to encourage our listeners to check out Sydell's website just to see the stable of properties and to think about, particularly as COVID starts to hopefully come out of this pandemic sooner rather than later, travelers will be resuming at a level that we hopefully had before, and you'll visit these properties. Andrew, I also think that as an example, I like that you are measuring what you're doing with the corporate philanthropy, because as I've written in the Caring Economy, we need to measure what's meaningful and report on it and hold ourselves accountable. The second thing that you're doing, I like the fact that you don't just keep doing the same thing over and over again, but rather you with your teams on the ground figure out what's next, how are we doing this. The example that comes to mind is your colleague, Leo Robacek, who I think was fairly instrumental in the COVID response to the World Central Kitchen. He himself had COVID, was hospitalized, and got very involved, got the hotel group involved with the food and beverage team in delivering meals. And that was, if I understand correctly, that's coming right out of the pandemic and an immediate need, right?
Yeah, well, we weren't, I mean, look, we were not the only people who did that, but certainly a lot of people did. And I think at the beginning of the pandemic, we were all sort of feeling a little bit powerless and trying to figure out, what to do. And we went from having vibrant, hotels. Hotels are very often closed or certainly greatly, incapacitated, and a great response that, again, we were not alone, but I'd like to think we did a good job of it, is using our kitchens to create meals for people in need, in particular the first responders. We did it in New York, we did it in LA, and Leo, as you say, was really instrumental. He's probably the leading mixologist in the world. I'm lucky enough to have him as a partner. And Leo basically was very, very sick early on. It was super frightening to me. I talked to him almost daily, and he was terrified. And all these people were dying in New York. And when he came back, he didn't come back sort of, scared. He came back and said, okay, how can we help? And he pushed and pushed. And we got the, it's complicated with a hotel with all different kinds of investors and permissions and consents and things. But we went, we made our way through all of that, and we just started serving meals to people. And we also re-engaged our staff. And I think one thing that's important to point out is people said, wow, will people really come back to work when they're getting all these benefits from the government? They can't really make much more, working in the kitchen than they can in, taking, benefits. And everyone we asked, without exception, came back to work. Everyone wanted to work. Everyone wanted to serve the communities. And, the feeling of, it was one of, I got a little depressed as a lot of people did during the, the height of the COVID. And this was one of the things that started to break that depression was, okay, well, let's, do something to help. And it was really, it was the program World Central Kitchen is Jose Andres, who's just been a real superstar in, these kind of crises throughout the world, and multiple different, crises, not just with COVID. And so he had a really great infrastructure to sort of, that we could, sort of plug into. And he just deserves a tremendous amount of sort of respect. And not only is he really one of the greatest chefs of our, of our generation, but probably the most important philanthropically and truly just a phenomenal person.
So Andrew Zobler is our guest today, the CEO and founder of Sydell Group. Andrew, one last question. Here we are, January 2021, a whole new year ahead of us. What are some of your goals or your sort of dreams and wishes that you can share publicly at this point?
Well, look, I think 2021 is going to be a really, really, really interesting year, and a special year. I think it's going to start in a dark place, and I think it's going to end in a light place. And I think as more and more people get vaccinated, and we sort of see our way out of this, I think that people are going to, yearn to come together and have a sense of, community, and also be able to sort of party and think about the next time, in life when you can get together and just sort of, dance with all your friends in a public place, or sort of, kiss, people on the cheek as you sort of see friends in a restaurant, and how happy that's going to make people. And so I'm really, spending a lot of my time just figuring out how we're, going to be able to sort of enhance and create venues that really support, that kind of renaissance that I'm expecting. And one of the things that we're actively working on is this idea of creating a place where people can go, a limited number of times a year to have sort of really special parties. And I don't want to give away all the details right now, but that's sort of something that's like a special project that we have in mind. It's something that I'm working on with Nick Jones at Soho House, and we're really excited about.
Well, that's an exciting tease. Listen, Andrew Zobler, my friend, my colleague now for all these years, thank you for joining us here on The Caring Economy. Wishing you and your family the healthiest and happiest of New Year's. Ladies and gentlemen, please check out the Sydell website and check out the properties when you're traveling. Andrew, any final thoughts from you?
No, I just appreciate that you're doing this, and hope that we can, in our own small way, we can make a difference.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year.